Hello, folks. Been a little while for a reaction to an ISC. Can't be reacting to everything that comes out, but this seems like the kind of one that we want to do a little recording. I haven't watched this yet. Been looking forward to hearing more about the career gameplay. This game loop is a very, very important part of this game. It's one that has been weirdly floundering for a long time. In fact, it's super strange to see this being called a design brief. That means what we're about to hear about is going to be a long-term thing. The cargo refactor, without even starting this video, is sounding like a much longer-term thing than they initially had planned. And seems like this is going to continue the long-sought better stability and support for the cargo hauling profession. But I'm loading your brains with a bunch of opinion and bias right now. Why don't we just get into the video and watch it? Yeah, let's see what they have to say about it. Thank you for joining me. If you enjoy, like and subscribe. If not, maybe do the same. Possibly next week's will be better. Anyways, into it.
In looking at the way that our teams are structured, especially after the Montreal merger with Turbulence, we decided to combine USPU as well as Montreal PU into NAPU.
NAPU stands for North American Persistent Universe.
NAPU is the regroupment of three different cities.
In order to kind of create a super team that gives them a lot of coding firepower as well as design firepower.
NAPU is really a collection of people from Austin, from LA, from Montreal.
We're all just getting together to try to make some amazing new features for Star Citizen PU.
So that includes physicalized cargo, in-game shops, and
Dude's like, I'm just trying to make a game. Why you got me on camera in here? Who are these people?
newer features that we're looking into, such as exploration.
We're working on mostly currently cargo and things regarding that. We recently finished work on the Hull C.
NAPU was formed in order to work on larger feature sets for Star Citizen, so that those features have the time and resources required to deliver them at the quality level that we want to see. NAPU includes several engineers, production, and QA.
We have 6 different programmers, actually. We have a
See, this should already be telling you, like, there's clearly still pretty decent sized teams of people working on Star Citizen specific features. NAPU being one that is made up of a few of them, it seems.
few that are in LA, and then we have a few more in Austin.
Right now that includes James, Mitch, Kevin, myself, as well as Preston on production and Alicia in QA. Did I say everyone?
We have 2
So NAPU
Matthew
is
and
a team.
Emma that are here in Montreal.
Yes, I think I got them all.
So at this point, a lot of what we're working on is still in the design phase.
I would say in the technical design and planning phase, but yeah.
There's a lot of TDD, like technical design document going on, preparing the feature and all the parts. There's a lot of work in that area.
The North American Persistent Universe team are currently at the forefront of the next major evolution of cargo, hangar, and related inventory systems. And as their work begins to enter the PU over the next 3 to 6 to 9 months and beyond, all building to what we hope will collectively become a true cargo career, we here at ISC, well, we didn't want to wait to begin telling the story. As much like the engineering and resource management systems of the EU-PU team, this work promises to be utterly transformative to the overall Star Citizen experience. So these next 2 shows, well, they're going to be a bit different than normal. That's because we're not going to have anything to dazzle your eyeballs with just yet. Yes, the ISC gameplay capture team, as great as they are, well, we're going to let them take a break this week as we let members of the NAPU team take you through the design and intention of their current work in a 2-part special we're calling Design Brief Cargo Career.
Not gonna lie, these design briefs are kind of, God. I don't know how to describe them. Not a slap in the face in the sense that like I am offended or something, but a very stark reminder how early some of this gameplay continues to be. Like when they came out with the design brief for engineering gameplay, it was the same sort of moment for me. I was like, man, it's gonna be a little while. And that's what I was saying about this exact gameplay probably a year or 2 ago. we got a design brief for investigation missions almost a year ago now, and there's still been nothing on it. So like, to give you an idea of what a design brief means for the gameplay they're showing, it all changes. It's all different based on what gameplay it is and who's working on it and their timetables and all that stuff. But as far as hoping that the cargo refactor was going to also come with cargo gameplay in 3.20, 21, and probably 4.0, it's looking less and less likely. But again, let's see what they have to say about it.
The focus of NAPU in the foreseeable future is going to include features such as freight elevators and instance hangars, as well as persistent hangars. Freight elevators are one of the biggest changes to cargo that we've seen in the entire history of the game. They bring the feature from being something that's somewhat magical to something that's physical. It adds friction, but also a gameplay experience around hauling cargo in our game.
I will say freight elevators are something that I think, freight elevators and persistent hangars are something I could see still getting this year. That seems more realistic than the overall cargo career that this episode seems geared towards trying to describe. So like the certain features like that, I guess, do seem closer at hand, which is good.
One addition, I think, is going to change not just cargo, but also the way that we interact with everything else in the game: inventory, player items, purchases, ship items. It's a fundamental change to how players are going to deal with the world. Freight elevators are going to be implemented as an access point inside of player hangars,
where the player can interface with cargo to get it ready to put it on their ship.
and you'll use a kiosk to interact with the freight platform in order to call things up from your inventory or to put things into your inventory. The way that the freight elevators are going to be implemented is actually using the same technology as we use for the cargo grids in the ships. Players will be using their tractor beams in order to detach things from the platform and then haul it onto their ship, and vice versa. They'll be using the tractor beams in order to detach things from the cargo grids and put them onto the freight platform. I think that this is going to make the whole experience feel a lot more tactile and organic, as well as there's a lot of fun and interesting gameplay around just how you stack things, how you sequence them, take a group of people, decide how you're actually going to load things together. It's like that time that you go and move with a U-Haul and your friends, you got to figure out where to put the couch, but in-game. It's going to be figuring out where do we take that big box, where do we put the ship items, where do we put the guns, and try to sequence it in a way that's both optimal as well as, I think, fun.
Unless you're like me in real life and you like to kind of pay people to help do that stuff so you can do other stuff at the same time. They might go into that here. If they don't, that will be a possibility for those of you who might be panicking about this. You can pay for services to get your stuff loaded. You don't always have to do this yourself.
We don't just want to have the feature, exist in a void. Really what we want to try and do is work with the whole scope of the game to support cargo. So this is something for outposts, for UGF, where we want to look at how do we really take advantage of cargo in these spaces.
However, it does mean that the outposts will also support the same manual loading process that the hangars and those other locations use.
So not only are you participating in cargo, in a hangar, in a station.
That's interesting. How is that going to work with an outpost? In a space station, it makes sense. There's some ever-present collection of goods down under the floors of the station you're in. But with an outpost, what are they just going to be like? Yeah, we've got an elevator. It goes underground. You just get to like this one building outpost, but they've got this massive stash of supplies underground. That'll be interesting to see what they do there. Maybe it'll just pop into existence and they'll just be like, deal with it.
But out in the verse as well, at an outpost.
And while freight elevators will be available throughout locations in the persistent universe, much of the work involved in manually loading and unloading your vehicles will always involve your hangars, which presented the team with some unique challenges to address and overcome, starting with the next iteration of instanced hangars.
Instanced hangars solve a particular problem. How do we have people spending an extended period of time in their hangar loading cargo now that we've added these freight platforms, but also allow the locations to have traffic coming in and out of the landing zones. What we're doing here is decoupling the access to a hangar from the occupancy. And all that really means is that we can dynamically create these hangars at runtime, and they're kind of set aside for players to spend time inside of.
Without getting too much into it, right, you're gonna have a personal space. We're just looking at ways that...
Hold up. Is his name Mitch Fieri? Bro. We gotta have like a Flavortown joke for this guy, right?
Flavortown!
And they're kind of set aside for players to spend time inside of.
Without getting too much
It's
into
Mitch
it.
Fieri.
Right,
He's here with
space. We're just looking
oh
at...
Jesus. I don't know. I there's gotta be a diners, drive-ins, and dives joke for this.
Diners, drive-ins, and dives. Diners, drive-ins, and dives. It's diners, drive-ins, and dives. On diners, drive-ins, and dives.
We don't want to have a big choke point of everybody trying to load their ships and unload and all trying to do that in the same space. So we have instance hangars as a way to put you in an area where you can feel comfortable, you can take the time that you want to load your or unload your cargo and, you know, really engage in that system the way that you choose.
And so you can actually have your personal space to deal with cargo inside a hangar. And depending on your ship, you know, there'll be different situations and different locations for that.
But the thing with this one is that when you leave, things gonna basically go away.
Once you want to leave, you'll just make a request to ATC, and the hangar will move into place. We'll open up the doors and you'll be able to leave. And then the same thing when landing, you make a request to ATC. The system will allocate the space for you, open the hangar, and you can land. For the players, it will seem seamless, but underneath the hood, the system itself is going to be maintaining a representation of where all the players are, what requirements are needed.
Yeah, but does that mean that I'm gonna have a bunch of people in their hangars? They're like little player markers flying around in space, kind of like how we have with the elevators right now. We got to figure out something for that.
Without having a bottleneck for players who are actually just trying to play the game otherwise. And then we have persistent hangars. Persistent hangars are kind of an evolution of instant hangars. And really what it is it's our first step towards real player ownership in the game beyond ships.
The cool thing is that you'll be able to put your stuff in it, come back to it, and it's still gonna be there.
It's just whatever the player wants to keep inside their hangar, that's their home. They can just leave them lie around, they can arrange them however they want, be it weapons or cargo or dead corpses or whatever.
Very, very long term. I have no clue of any dates or anything, but you'll be able to customize it and upgrade it so it becomes bigger. You can have bigger ships in them. And maybe
The coolest part about this is that you're going to be able to get these temporary hangars anywhere you go, but then you can also have hangars you actually own. Like a temporary hangar is something you have to pay rent on and all that stuff. But like a hangar you actually own somewhere is a different idea. And those are the kind of early hangars that backers from like way back in the day would have gotten. I guess they did hand out those hangars for quite some time, but mostly they were more popular when all you could do was go into your hangar rather than actually play in the PU.
I have no clue of any dates or anything, but you'll be able to customize it and upgrade it so it becomes bigger. You can have bigger ships in them. And maybe at some point even having them like at distant location, you could buy a second one. For now, it's going to really be on your own location.
It's persistent to you and your character. And you can invite friends
So they're starting with just one.
to your hangar. You can load up your ship. You can take the haul from your mission, you know, out of your ship and distribute it to your buddies.
Who's the dude in the background who's actually doing work? Who is this? We've all got one.
Take the haul
Jesus.
from your mission, you know, out of your ship and distribute it to your buddies. So persistence of hangars is really important.
This is going to be developed more in the future, and we're going to use the same technology that we're using to build this for other things in the game, such as player hubs. And it's a real, I think, exciting way for the players to feel like they have a more permanent place in the game that they can call their own.
I can't help but notice the ISC gameplay capture team snuck some conceptual visualization in there after all. What can I say? They love what they do. And of course, I'd be remiss if I didn't say that everything you're hearing about today is the current intention of the design team at the time that we film this.
Bring on the economy team.
Now, as with all things you see and hear about on any ISC, it's always a work in progress, and may, and often will, continue to evolve as development progresses and concepts are tested. Now, so far in our Design Brief cargo career, we've talked about how you'll move and store your boxes. So let's find out more about what happens inside those boxes going forward.
Economy.
With 320, we introduced a new packing system that allows us to use a larger set of box sizes. Right now, that includes 1 SEU, 2, 4, 8, 16, 24, and 32. However, with this new version of cargo coming out subsequently, we're going to be adding the ability to have what we call inventory container boxes.
Inventory actually plays a big part of cargo as well. When you look at the sheer scope of number of boxes and number of weapons and armor and FPS entities that we have in our game, we really want to make sure that not only is cargo physicalized, but that inventory has a proper location and place as well.
If you go to Port Tressler and you hit I, you'll bring up the player inventory screen, and you'll see that, okay, I have my access to Port Tressler inventory no matter where I am standing in the station. That's going to go away. This is very important because what it means is it gives the players a way to transfer in a very clean and effective way all of the loose items that you collect during gameplay.
This is the big inventory change that I think a lot of the longtime players have been wondering how it's going to end up going down. Because they changed it at first, they changed it to no global inventory, then they changed it to the city and space station no longer share inventory. Now they're going to change it so that nothing shares inventory. And I always wondered, where is that third person inventory going to go after this? But that's a different conversation. This should be an interesting change.
A big change that's coming up is going to be having properties for those boxes. So that could be something like a box that's fragile, or a box that could be radioactive, or that needs to be kept cold. The other thing we're looking at with cargo and cargo boxes is the ability to store large items in your cargo boxes. This could be anything from a ship weapon to even smaller vehicles like Grey Cats. That way, when you're going with your friends, you're going to do a long haul across the verse, you can have these larger boxes filled to the brim with as many ship weapons as your ship is going to carry.
Anything that you think you want to take with you and hold on to, now you can put them in an inventory container box, snap them into the cargo grid, and haul it into your ship. Additionally, you'll be able to take those to the freight platforms in order to put them into your inventories. So
they need to talk a little bit about changing things between boxes. Like transferring stuff, that's more, I guess, a design thing that comes later with UI and stuff. But like, they're talking about these inventory boxes. I'd love to hear the fact that I can take so-and-so amount of things out of one of these inventory boxes and it would automatically create another inventory box of the right size, and all that stuff would be interesting. This is great to hear, though. I'm glad they're on this. Man, it just really, sometimes it gets me when I'm like, oh, okay, you guys you didn't do this last year when you were talking about this on the monthly reports.
It's a kind of universal way to haul things around in the game, as well as a way for players to be able to pirate player inventories now. Now that you have these goods that are locked up together in these inventory containers, it just takes a tractor beam in order to carry them off. So it gives a lot of gameplay possibilities for us to have with these loose items.
Did that actually fit in the Cutlass?
A lot of these things will tie into missions and where you decide to place them on your ship. So we're really trying to make sure with cargo, it's not just a wide system, but that we're actually adding these kind of elements to help further gameplay, missions, and purpose.
guys had the week off. This is a design brief show. It's talking and it's intent, and none of this stuff is ready to show yet. Don't you want a week off? Your stuff's so weird anyway.
That is some people's reaction.
No weird stuff for Cargo Grid. Back to the spaceship.
Is there no weird stuff? The heck, Jared?
We have some additional changes that we're going to be making to the cargo grids that allow them to have any sized item attached into them. At the moment, we have effectively one kinds of items that attach to the cargo grids. Those are the cargo boxes, and they all have a similar size step on the dimension. And what I just mean by that is they're all what we call 1 SEU length multiples on.
Hey, that's pretty important for those mining grids. And did I also see a freaking ship? Are y'all talking about ships? Is that for real, or is that just visual conceptualization mojo jojo? Because that's pretty big if we're talking about physics grids attaching. That's huge. What about mineable rocks? Like, ooh.
Row boxes, and they all have a similar size step on the dimension. And what I just mean by that is,
see, that ship doesn't have the same size dimensions, so I feel like it's a joke, but who knows?
they're all what we call 1 SEU length multiples on each side. We're going to have it to where anything can attach to the cargo grid as long as it's a physical item in the game.
Okay, so ships.
Anything that you can grab with that tractor beam that can reasonably snap into place will be able to snap into place. And this is a requirement just.
Hot dogs? Are you serious? The game has changed, folks. Star Citizen just took another step up. Oh my God. Hot dog delivery ships.
To satisfy the inventory changes that we're making now that you won't have this kind of magical access. But it also, I think, broadens the horizons about what your cargo grid and all of your ships can be used for. I think it'll also open up a lot of fun gameplay around just figuring out how to arrange all these things in a way that works well.
So yeah, that's part 1 of our talk about Design Brief Cargo Career. Next week, we'll be back with changes to vehicles and location inventory, larger cargo item support, kiosk changes, the item bank, and even unique item recovery. So come on back and get the full scope of things next week. And as testing and fixing continues in Alpha 320 over on the PTU, with the latest additions to Arena Commander and the Persistent Universe heading your way, you can check out the RobertSpaceIndustries.com website or launcher for details on when that releases. For Inside Star Citizen, I'm Jared Huckabee. Thanks for letting us share the process of game development with you, and for indulging us in these mostly visual-free design brief shows. And we'll see you all here for part 2 next week.
All right. Okay. That was good stuff. That's what we like to see. I was very complainy because I feel like I just lost 3 months. This was the kind of design brief, full-on design brief episode I was expecting probably in April-ish. This was something I was expecting to see after we got the first cargo refactor. This looks like a design brief for the second and probably third steps of the cargo refactor, being the persistent hangars and the freight elevators and the cargo sizes. And as it sounds like they're going to talk about in part 2 next week, some of the other stuff. And that's been my biggest problem with the summer as a whole and the year as a whole, is it felt like we were in like an information gap. Maybe Inside Star Citizen is coming back now with more interesting information, especially considering we got this with a month or so left until CitizenCon. Means they're not necessarily pulling away all information. This seriously feels like something that we would have seen 3 months ago, probably if 318 had not gone how 318 went. So that aside, with the timing and the fact that it took so long for us to get this information, and the fact that we're just now getting a design brief on this stuff, that's a bummer. But this was great stuff to see. Physicalizing all objects in the game, or rather having all physicalized objects able to be added to physical grids, really continues to step up that immersive sim vibe of this game. It does the same thing with objects for physical grids that it's doing for tractor beams, in the sense that you can basically drag around anything that's physicalized in the game. This is such, I don't know how it's going to work out for gameplay. I don't know if they've planned for that. I really do hope they have, and that's all part of how they've designed this stuff. But man, if nothing else, the way that they've built this game, the technology in it is freaking remarkable, and it's going to lead to some insanely interesting sandbox opportunities and just all kinds of crazy stuff on YouTube, on streams, on everything. I can't wait to see it. I hope I can be involved with it. I'm not that creative, but I would love to get involved with that stuff, because it's insane. The cargo system in this game is going to be nuts. I hope that we can hear more about the economy side of it next week with the kiosks, supply and demand. Maybe we will. Who knows? But that's part one. Hope you enjoyed this look into it. I'll catch you all next week. Have a good one.